Good evening, everybody. And tonight here on It's in the Ballot, these are your candidates vying for the Hamilton West electorate vote. But with every election, there's one thing stepping in their way, and that's your vote. Kia ora, good evening, and welcome to tonight's It's in the Ballot show. And we're here from the Hamilton West electorate, and I can tell you right now, this side of the river, we get a hell of a lot more candidates turning out than what we did earlier today. But we've got some very good familiar faces here who, for the Hamilton West voters, will be familiar on going there. So let's kick off Rudi, with your opening statement, please.
Right, thank you so much. My name is Rudi de Plooy. I am here for Vision New Zealand and also Party Vote, of course, Freedoms New Zealand. Glad to be here, glad to talk to you guys about where we see our country going, and just a privilege to be part of this election.
Okay, thank you. Next up, Kevin.
Kevin Stone's my name, representing New Zealand First and the Hamilton West electorate. And I'm proud to be involved in this political fiasco, shall we say, because that's what seems to be happening. You know, democracy is the most important thing. And I'm a New Zealander, I'm a nationalist, and we have to get New Zealand First back into Parliament. We keep an eye on whoever is the government. We'll keep them in check.
Okay, next up, Tama.
Kia ora tātou. Taupiri te maunga Waikato te awa, tangata he piko, he taniwha, he piko, he taniwha. Waikato is the river, Taupiri is the mountain, and Potaka is the land. At every bend there is a chief. At every bend there is a chief. My name is Tama. I'm married to Ariana. We have 3 children, Te Aria, Te Awarua, and Aorangi. And family or whānau is something that I really cherish and believe in. Strong family and strong communities. It's the basis of the values of the National Party. We seek to create a safe, prosperous and successful New Zealand that gives everyone the opportunity to achieve their personal and collective goals. And right now, that's been severely compromised. We need to get our country back on track. The economy, fail. Crime, law and order, fail. Education, health, housing, fail. All these things have failed, notwithstanding the billions of extra dollars that were put into these issues. All the outcomes have gone backwards. Now we need to get back on track. Party Vote National.
Okay, next up, Susan.
Greetings, kia ora. My name is Susan Stevenson. I'm an educator, I'm a leader, and I'm also a business person and a researcher. It gives me a great deal of pride to be representing the ACT Party here tonight. I was attracted to the ACT Party when I learned about their 4 key principles. The ACT Party believes in maintaining as many of our freedoms as possible and works through our policies and through our activities to actually support the rights of all people. We also, as a second prong, believe in personal responsibility. We cannot have freedom and individual rights unless we take responsibility. And of course, generations of New Zealanders have done this in the past for us to be here. We also believe in looking after the environment and the economy. And our fourth principle is focused on a high quality life for all people in New Zealand. And all of our policies are framed to do just these things. Party Vote Act for a real change.
Okay, now we'll get a video opening credit from Naomi.
Are you getting sick of bickering between the political parties? The Opportunities Party wants to sit in the middle and work with either side to take New Zealand forward in the direction we all want to see it go. Looking after future generations, caring for our environment, and creating a fairer society. We're a party of deep integrity, and our policies are based on expert advice. We look around the world, see what's working well, and apply it to the New Zealand context. So if you want to bring a fresh voice into Parliament, vote for TOP in 2023. I'm Naomi Pocock. I'm standing in Hamilton West, and I'm asking for your party vote. Party vote TOP.
Let's get up Myra, your opening statement, please.
Hello, my name is Myra Williamson. I am standing for Labour in Hamilton West. I am a local. I was born and raised in Hamilton. I went to Forest Lake, Idle Intermediate and Fraser High. I used to be a lawyer and a law academic. And I'm standing for Labour because I thoroughly believe in all of the policies that Labour is putting forward. New Zealand has been through a tough time recently, but our economy is in fantastic shape moving forward. We've got record low unemployment, under 4% for 8 quarters, and our inflation is tracking down. I believe in all of the investments that Labour is making in health, education, housing, and infrastructure. I believe that this election is an election about values. Whether you want New Zealand to keep moving forward, you want to reap the benefits of all the investments we have made, or whether you want to take us on a train moving back to the past, back to rising carbon emissions, back to a lack of investment in public housing, back to 90-day trials in employment, back to being able to kick out renters for no reason. I don't see any reason that we should be taking New Zealand backwards. Please party vote Labour and vote for a local. If you believe in moving forward. Kia ora.
Thank you for that. Yeah, okay, now let's, just a moment. Yep. Okay, let's kick off for the, Electorate map, where we will be bringing up the Hamilton West electorate and giving you a bit of a summary of where things are. Just waiting for that to... Okay, so coming from the bottom of the Hamilton West is mainly on the western side of the Waikato River, but there's also a little snippet near Flagstaff on the northern side of the river. Scrolling down from the south, if we can get into there, I will bring up a similar map so I can actually see what's actually happening on there. Just a moment. This is what happens when a few little things that would have been... So at the moment I can't actually see on the screen what's happening, but we'll get there. Oh, heck. You have to go for about 5 tabs to sit there and get through to what's happening, just so you can actually see what's happening. Okay, so the bottom of the of the electorate, you've got Fitzroy, Glenview, Dingwell, Dixon Heights, and you've also got the Waikato Hospital. If we head up towards them, you do have Temple View, which is a little bit of a panhandle out. You've also got suburbs of Frankton, Livingston, Western Heights. Is it Norton? I don't know. Was it Bears Court? Okay, yeah, and we've got St Andrews, where we're being filmed right at the moment, and Te Rapara on the north, and on the west there's the northern part of Flagstaff in there, and then you'll head right up until where State Highway 1C heads back towards the Waikato Expressway. So if you're in that area there, you live in the Hamilton West electorate. Now let's get off to the part that I always love sitting there doing for the show, the questions we think you'll be asking after watching tonight's show once we get there. Why is that TV turned off? That's really weird. Okay, as long as the one in front of me still works, that should be the important part. So let's go on there. Question number 1. Is no clause rental termination, if no clause rental terminations and reinstated in 2026, will tenants have to worry about being evicted for allowing painting politicians to use their bar from the house if the landlord finds out and does not like that politician? Is Te Huia again on threat in 2023 being replaced by a hand-powered jigger as some think it's not being used enough? And here's a big vital one. Is it time to triple the Serious Fraud Office budget to $49 million to match the effort and resources MSD spends on investigating benefit fraud? And quite often, they don't tend to deliver a net return of less than $20 million. So those are the questions we think you'll be asking after watching tonight's show. Okay, now I've just got to sit down there and get to my get where we're going here today. Okay, so next up is the questions. Have we not managed to get that TV on?
No.
Oh, what a shame. Oh well. It's all right. If you want to read what it is, just read on the one on the TV screen in front of me. I wonder if it went into auto sleep mode. I mean, known for TVs are known for doing that, and I'm just in the process of typing in the random order list, so we're not okay. So with the questions here, each candidate gets to pick a box number and answer the questions in the boxes. Each candidate has 2 butt-in cards and 1 defer card to another candidate. If candidate here's another candidate's question that they want to sit there and give an answer for, they can use their button card, and that can and then once that original candidate has finished answering the question, then the person who wants to button can sit there and use it. Be careful with your button cards because you've only got 2 of them, and we've got 28 questions there in the show, and we hopefully might be able to exhaust all of them out. So, Myra, you get to be the first candidate to pick a box number. What box number would you like?
Number 11, please. Oh.
So let's go for box number 11.
So we have B for Bravo. So do you believe that 16-year-olds have maturity to vote?
Yes, absolutely. I totally support the bill that has been introduced to Parliament to allow 16-year-olds to vote. So many reasons, but one of the ones is that 16-year-olds are old enough to work and pay taxes. And there's an age-old principle, no taxes without representation. If you're old enough to work and pay taxes, you're old enough to have a say in the political process. The second reason is that young people are 17% of the current population and 100% of the future population. The decisions made today by 80 and 90-year-olds are important, but it's not going to affect them in the long term. 16-year-olds are going to make decisions that are going to affect them for 70, 80 years, depending on how long they live, and they definitely need a voice. Some of our greatest changes have been brought about by youth advocates. The youth are incredibly concerned about climate change, and we should all be concerned about climate change. Youth are leading us in this area. So yes, I am totally in support of 16-year-olds having the right to vote.
Thank you, Myra. Next up, Tama. What box number? Yeah.
Number 7. We have question S, that is S for Sierra. In the 2019 budget, $1.9 billion was allocated to improving mental health services. To what extent do you consider that this has improved our mental health system and made a difference to our country's well-being?
Kia ora tātou, and I wanted to acknowledge all the participants here today. Mental health is an absolute tragedy in our country. We call it part of the tapawhā: mental, physical, cultural, spiritual. And right now, there are many, many more people who are suffering from mental health challenges. The budget in 2019 allocated nearly $2 billion across mental health services. But for the most part, mental health's actually gone backwards in the last 4 years. So what we think it shows is that there's not been enough targeted mental health support. And people like Mike King a very successful practitioner of mental health support, has not been supported very much at all. So what we have proposed to do is set aside some money for Group Friday to enable him to go out and deliver. There have been some efforts to do more in schools, but in our view, things have gone massively backwards. Again, fail block by the Labor government.
Okay.
We
next
have
up-
a button card
Oh, yes.
for Myra.
So I disagree with everything that was just said in terms of Tama's answer, and it's what I would call misinformation from the National Party. Under Labor, more than 1 million mental health sessions have already been delivered through our new Access and Choice program. Number 2, we are interested in targeted mental health support for Rainbow youth. Number 3, fixing mental health infrastructure with a plan to build a new acute mental health and addiction facility. We're going to build those facilities around the country, and we are going to put more money into mental health and well-being, and we're going to support people's mental health through online services and through apps. We do have better mental health services in New Zealand. We are already delivering better mental health services in New Zealand, so we are succeeding, and we are interested in improving the mental health of our students in schools. You can talk to parents around the country who will say, and I do know parents personally, that there has been a sudden and quite marked increase in mental health support in schools around New Zealand. Kia ora.
Oh, we got another button. Susan.
It's very interesting, this nearly $2 billion that was assigned as part of the COVID package to support people to recover from what they went through, the terrible divisions that have been created in our society over COVID. The reality is that money was earmarked to give 500,000 people 6 sessions to support their mental health. 2 years after it was awarded, less than 365 people had actually had that service. And ever since then, the government has been looking to move it around to other funds, but not for the purposes for which it was allocated. The ACT Party will actually start a new unit to take tenders from the various incredibly talented community organisations that are doing really effective work in this space, and we will facilitate that money going to the actual people who need it, with the community sponsoring that, as opposed to the government imposing it on who they can.
Okay, now Susan, it's your choice for a box number. What box number would you like to pick?
Tahi.
We have question D for Delta. Will your party review relationships and sexuality education, known as RSE, in primary schools?
Yes, this is very interesting. I work and have worked for many, many years as a health educator, and I've followed the different curricula that have been developed in New Zealand. The recent curriculum refresh, which has been imposed on schools across the country, has had very poor consultation with the key people that needed to be involved in this. And for primary school children, it is important that parents have a say and have their values supported in the school. So one of the obligations schools currently have is to consult with their communities about what sex education is provided to children in primary and secondary schools. And this needs to be happening, and then parents have the right to decide what works for their child and what does not. The idea that a state would impose over the values of a family, I think, is something that actually devalues the family, and it's definitely not something that should be supported. The family and the community needs to have the say in these things, not the state.
We have 2 button cards. We'll go first with Alex, who is representing Naomi Pocock, because Naomi could not attend tonight.
Hi folks, I want to make a few clarifications to what Susan has said. So Susan's described this as sex education. We're not talking about the sex education that you or I would have experienced when we went to school. The program that's being taught in school currently is relationships and sexuality. Nobody is teaching 5-year-olds about the mechanics of having sex and having babies. That's not happening. What is being taught are boundaries, understanding and respecting boundaries, understanding and building the skills for healthy relationships and how relationships work, as well as teaching age-appropriate information to our kids about bodily autonomy. We're not teaching people how to have sex if you're a 5-year-old. We're teaching people that your body is your body and you have the right to your own bodily autonomy. And to add a little twister onto this idea that parents should be teaching this, that they should be teaching everything, we know that the vast majority of sexual abuse happens at the hands of a family member. So at times, it is not safe to rely on parents.
We have another We have Rudi, who has butted in on this question as well.
I hear the word used, boundaries. Now, I think this is an overreach in terms of government fiddling in an area that they are not equipped to deal with effectively. They need to stay away from our children. Our children are ours, and we will sort out what they will believe and what they won't believe until they get to an age where they have a clear understanding of what is correct and what is not correct. Until that time, we as parents will stand firm and disregard. This is another attack on the worth of the family unit. And I don't think that it's time to come and fiddle with it and change it and make it something that it's not. It's another effect of world opinion and world effect on what we should believe as Kiwis, and we do not want that.
Okay. Next up is Alex on behalf of Naomi. What box number?
Number 23, please.
So we have question A for Alpha.
Awesome. So
Hang on, stop.
A.
Yep. Oh,
Are you gonna read
yes,
it out?
sorry, yes,
Okay.
sorry, yes. Oh, sorry, it didn't. Go.
Okay. So, over the past few years, New Zealand has suffered from many forms of division. How would your party reconnect people and heal the divide so we're a united country once again? So I'm channeling my inner Naomi on this. She would do a far better job answering this question than I would. But one of the great things about the Opportunities Party is that social cohesion is one of our top priorities. We're the only party saying that we'll work with anyone, it doesn't matter who you are, red or blue or any other colour, to get solid policy that is effective and that works across the line. Ultimately, the Opportunities Party wants to make a difference and wants to see a difference in the legislation that we introduced. Fundamentally, rhetoric from leadership is huge to the messages that we hear, but what gets picked up in the media and the way that we think as a society. Our local communities aren't actually that divided. Most of the division comes from messaging in the media, it comes from messaging from political parties and leaders, and we would call out that rhetoric as unhelpful. It's easy if all you do is spend all of your time on Twitter to think that we're this horribly divided nation, and we're not. So if you're interested in a party that can work across the aisle, push through the future of New Zealand, the thing that we all want to see, then you should party vote for the Opportunities Party.
Okay, Rudi, what box number?
We'll go for 8.
Oh, hold on. We've got a
A button on
okay.
the division issue. Yep.
The ACT Party has really serious concerns about the various divisions that have been created in our nation in the last 6 years. The people who create our food, not only for the 5 million New Zealanders, but also for another 35 million people outside of New Zealand, have been demonised. The people who rent flats to people have been demonised and punished with taxes, which have put people's rents up between $130 and $180 a week. In every part of society, people have been set against us. And in one of the most heartbreaking areas in terms of our relationships with our treaty partners. The ACT Party believes that everybody is party to this ongoing contract and everybody has a right to be part of the discussions and the travel of this contract in one direction. I worked with the University of Otago to implement the treaty And now I see the meanings of that treaty being changed, distorted, everybody an opportunity to actually take part in this conversation and to decide the way forward, supporting the rights and the equal value of all people in New Zealand.
Okay.
Got a box number 8, Rudi,
From Rudi.
and you have question B. B for Victor. So, in your opinion, how well is the government managing the adverse medical and social impacts of COVID vaccinations?
It's one of the reasons why the current government is not going to be back in power again, is the way they conducted themselves in dealing with the COVID pandemic. What is happening to the people that have suffered adverse effects from the COVID vaccine has not been dealt with effectively, because we are still in a phase of blame shifting. It's not him, it's not her, he didn't say, she didn't say, they didn't decide, and so we do not have effective things in place to deal with it. Where I was talking to somebody the other day, and she's got a young son, and he's suffering from myocarditis, and he's submitted his claims. Oh, there you go, Rudi. He's going. And he's suffering from myocarditis, and a claim has been submitted to ACC. Some more shifts in the government now coming, and it's not been done. So don't just believe what you've been fed. It's not true.
Okay.
We have a button
from Kevin.
New Zealand First candidate, Kevin Stein.
Well, the problem is that New Zealand First has looked at this, although they started off right at the start when it first came in, that there's been many things that have changed. And what New Zealand First is going to do, we're going to have a thorough, independent look at this COVID situation. There's been many things that have been said about it. There's been many politicians that have said from the podium of truth, and it's turned out to be lies. And so that is the reason why New Zealand First is going to have an absolute independent inquiry. And some of these politicians that have been speaking from this podium of truth, they're going to be in a situation that I think they'll be very embarrassed.
Okay. And Kevin, you've got the next box number.
23. Is it gone? Yeah. It might have gone.
Yes, it has gone.
Let's go for 15.
At least this one's not caught on camera.
Okay, we have question L for Lima. What MP in the current Parliament, but not a party leader, do you admire most and why? That's in the current government or Parliament.
That's a very good
So you
question.
you can't admire one of your own.
Okay, well, yes, well, New Zealand First is there, so I can't nominate them, of course. Who would I admire? Goodness, that's a very, very difficult question. It really is. I've looked at all kinds of politicians over the years, and there's nobody that I can see in this government that we have now that even would come anywhere near some of the past and previous politicians that we've had. Things like, Nordmeyer and Holyoake and all those ones there, even Longy. We had people there that really stood up for our country. And the ones that I'm seeing now, I'm sorry, I can't see it. And so I'd like to pass on that.
You're not the only one that's passed on that question in this road trip. Button, here we go.
I've got no trouble finding a candidate. It can't be a party leader. So I'm going to choose MP I most admire is Grant Robertson. Grant Robertson is the Minister of Finance and List MP, has been an exemplary manager of the economy. Not my word, that's the word of the IMF, which is not known to be a leftist organisation. They said that Grant Robertson's management of the economy during the pandemic was exemplary. We have had AAA ratings from Moody's, from Fitch, from Standard & Poor's. These are international rating agencies that not just maintained our ratings, they upgraded New Zealand's economic rating. And so this is independent evidence that Grant Robertson has been amazing Minister of Finance and MP. I admire the way he looked after businesses throughout COVID. Businesses were supported with the wage subsidy, and now he is managing our economy to get inflation back between 1% and 3% by the end of next year. Thank you.
Okay, we'll get on to the next round. And Alex, you get to pick the next box number on behalf of Naomi.
Can I please have unlucky number 13?
I'm sure it'll be lucky for you. It was last time. And we have question K for kilo. In your opinion, what do you think will be the main issue that will decide this election?
Yeah, it's a good question. So answering for Naomi here, I'm really inspired by the youth vote. I think the youth vote is going to be the single biggest factor that perhaps we haven't taken into account. Youth represent 30% of the voting population. If we can give them hope that their vote will count for something, if we can give them hope that they can make a difference, there is meaning in them getting out on voting day and doing the needful, we can have a very different country overnight. The Opportunities Party is doing that. We're trying to inspire the youth with policies like the Teal Card that cater for their health, for their mental well-being, for their dental well-being, free transport, the works. Our future generations' outlook and our willingness to work with either side to get that policy across the line are the things that we think will mobilize youth and dramatically change the voting environment overnight, because we believe that youth are the future. We want to be talking about going forward. We want to be talking about youth in the future rather than talking about going backwards. So that's why Youth Party vote for the Opportunities Party.
Okay, next up, Kevin. What box number?
Let's go for number 9, please.
We have question AB, Alpha Bravo AB. To what extent do you consider that public transport policies are incentives to support the use of public transport while also reducing climate change impacts?
Okay. Public transport really needs to be of a good standard. Unfortunately, we don't have that here in New Zealand. And what seems to be going against the public transport is all the cycle lanes and all the cones that we're having here. You know, they're disrupting the flow of traffic. It's all it's doing. We're all complaining now of all the cones there and the slowing down of traffic. What's it going to be like in 5 years' time? You know, and climate change. You know, it's one of those things, climate change. Now, I'm not a disbeliever of climate change, but the thing is, it depends where you start those stats. We're doing about 200 years. That's all we're about doing. Climate change is cyclical. It's been going on for thousands of years. Thousands of years. And yet we've based everything on the last 200 years. We've got to have a more sustainable climate situation that we can resolve some of these things that are happening, all the floods, etc. And we just need to just loosen up a little bit.
Okay, next up, Tama.
Okay, we have question N for November. So what role should New Zealand play in international refugee crises?
Which candidate would you like to defer it to?
Whether you can actually look over at that screen over there.
Oh, do I defer to someone?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, why don't I defer?
You can defer it to somebody. Sorry.
I defer you.
Okay, so we've got a question referred to Rudi, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So which one is that we're doing?
Look at the screen down there. What role should New Zealand play in international refugee crises?
I think it is a question that needs to be answered, and I would have really liked to have heard what the National Party had to say about it. The first thing is the first thing, and that is we need to stay and fulfill our commitments in terms of the refugee quota system. We can't just walk away from it and pretend it's not there. It's not part of what we're doing. But we do certainly have to make sure that before we entertain bringing people here that do not fit into our society and want to be aside from the Kiwi lifestyle, I think we need to be wary of that and understand that we should not just look at that and just bring it in. So it needs to be looked at, and I think we should grade countries. There's a lot of trouble all across the world, and we need to just be very careful of who we bring, who they fit into, will they become Kiwis, and can we utilize their abilities and capacities to make our country better and stronger.
Okay, next up, Susan, what box number?
We have question G for golf. Do you think New Zealand has coped well with the COVID-19 pandemic? And what lessons have we learned?
I think there were efforts to cope with this COVID pandemic, and I think in reality it affected and caught, I think, all leaders and governments around the world off base. But in terms of how it rolled out, I don't think it served New Zealand as well, because we still have these wounds, we still have a lack of reconciliation, we have differences with people. ACT always stood for the position that people could either be vaccinated or tested, which would have given people choices. For people who work in the medical profession or even the medical profession, we've always been saying that informed consent was our right, and it was the right of every professional to uphold this. Both of these things were thrown out, in my view, completely in an unnecessary way. ACT has promised to have an independent Royal Commission into COVID so that we can truly learn from what actually happened and do a better job if this sort of danger comes to our shores again.
Okay, next up, Rudi, what box number?
Let's try a 17.
We have question F for Foxtrot. Current information from overseas indicates that vaping is not a healthier alternative to smoking. Children of primary school age are becoming addicted. What is your party's plan to address this health concern?
Vaping is one of those things where we're trying to now find a remedy once the horse is already bolted. We've allowed something to come into the country, and now we're going to try and stop it, and we can claim that we don't understand and we didn't know and whatever it is. But what we do know, in the beginning it was said guys who were battling to get off cigarettes are going to go into vaping, and that's going to help them get off cigarettes. Now, the research now points to that that is not true. They go onto vaping, and this is now the new standard. This is what they do. And it is incredibly unhealthy. You can die from the stuff, and people have died because of vaping. So it's a crisis. We need to look at it, and we need to maintain a good, healthy standard in stuff like that. We also need to make sure that these stores are not set up close to schools and proximities to schools. But vaping, that field is try and stop it.
We have a button card from Alex.
Yeah, so this is one that I think Naomi's done a great job writing up for me, and I totally agree with her. It sounds like there's agreement from what I'm hearing across the spectrum as well, which is a great place where TOP can work together with everybody. Fundamentally, the Opportunities Party has a petition out with people right now that you should go and sign about vaping. Our policy is that, as Rudi said, initially vaping was something that we introduced to help people quit smoking. It's no longer being used as that. Now it's just being used as something that's entirely different. We believe that vapes should be restricted. We believe that vapes should only be sold behind the counter of a pharmacy because it was initially brought in for medical treatment, not for recreation. We should require plain packaging for vapes and require that vapes be hidden from the public, the exact same treatment as with cigarettes. And we should also limit the flavors available, because you can't tell me that lemon gummy soda is not marketed towards children. We should increase funding for vaping cessation programs, and we should fundamentally treat vaping and all other addictions as health concerns and not criminal ones.
Thank you. Okay, Myra, what box number?
We have question why? Why for Yankee? My fiance and I are concerned that we will never be able to afford a property in the electorate where we grew up. What are you doing to make housing in this area affordable and accessible for first home buyers?
Labor has done a lot to bring first home buyers back into the market. We banned foreign buyers from being able to purchase our houses. That is super important. And National are going to bring back foreign buyers, and so will ACT. So this young couple will not be any further ahead of National and ACT win. The foreign buyer ban is supposed to bring in $5 billion a year and fund National's tax plan, and all economists say that there is a gaping hole and the national figures do not add up. We have extended the Bright Line test from 2 to 10 years. That has also encouraged first home buyers into the market. We have stopped property speculators from deducting interest, and interest deductibility is going to come right back in under National and ACT. But by removing interest deductibility, what we did was we introduced more first home buyers into the market, and now 25% of the housing market is first home buyers, and it was only 15% under the previous National government.
We have a button card from Tama.
Housing has been one of the most abject failures of the last 6 years. There's 750 kids in Hamilton emergency housing, 25,000 families waiting for a social house, and a real lack of absolute focus by the government and allowing and encouraging councils to create housing growth. Instead, we've got a state monopoly supercharged on overburdened debt and ongoing inputs from the Minister and the Labor government throwing billions of dollars at the housing New Zealand known as Kind Order. What we need to do is encourage councils to go for growth and create more greenfield and brownfield opportunities to grow housing, to build the infrastructure that we need in order to enable that, and to stop these outrageous aspirations. 100,000 houses are going to be built in 10 years under build. How many? 1,800. Stop the aspiration, start the delivery.
Okay, and we're going to get off to another round, and I think this will be our last round for all the candidates in order to keep everything on time. Rudi, you get the first box number.
What did I do wrong? Okay, I'll do number 14. Thanks.
We have question J for Juliet. The Future of Local Government report says the current local government funding and finance system is already under pressure and is not sustainable. How is your party going to respond to this issue?
Want to defer this to the Labour candidate.
Certainly. Myra, would you like to take that question or defer it to somebody else if you wish?
No, I'll answer.
Awesome.
So this government has recognised that councils are underfunded, And for that reason, we have a review into the future of local government that is out at the moment. There are lots of proposals to improve local government. Funding is definitely something that has to be addressed. There is no way that local councils can continue under the current model of funding through rates, because we simply have too many expenses that councils have to meet. So we propose, I've heard Kieran McAnulty talk about the need for councils to receive around about $1 billion more funding from central government. Central government has to play a role in supporting local government. And one of the areas that is most apparent in is water reform. Affordable water reform has been taken up by central government because local government cannot invest in it. You only have to look at the news to see the headlines in Auckland, in Queenstown, to know how much need there is for central government to support local government.
Okay, next box number, Tama.
Number 3.
We have question H, hotel. Property investors often outbid first home buyers at house auctions. How would you encourage these investors to switch to more productive investments?
Kia ora, and thanks for the question. There's a big assumption that lies in that question that property investment is unproductive. And actually, I believe that property investment can be very productive. Not only do you enable people to have homes that would not have ordinarily had homes, for example, through rental properties, but you also enable cities to grow. One of the challenges that the current government and also councils have had over time is creating more greenfield and brownfield opportunities to go for housing growth, and also put in the infrastructure required in order to enable that growth. What the National Party is prepared to do is to support councils to rezone for 30 years out, so you can influence the land prices, where the biggest challenge for home affordability actually lies in the land prices. We will also support, for example, in Hamilton West, some major roading infrastructure to be put in place, such as the Southern Links and the Cambridge to Piarere 4-laning. There are other policies that we have in place that will enable better housing and enable more housing for first-time buyers.
Okay, next up, Myra. What box number?
Number 10, please.
We have question X, X for X-ray. Health workers who work for Te Whatu Ora are still required to be vaccinated against COVID. If elected, will you change the law to remove this mandate?
I do not believe that Labor has a plan to change the vaccine mandate. As far as I know, having health workers vaccinated against COVID has protected vulnerable patients in hospitals. My mum and dad were in their 80s and 90s and were in hospital. They were protected by all the healthcare workers who were vaccinated against COVID. So I don't think there is any need or any reason to remove the vaccine mandate. There are new strains of COVID coming into the country regularly. I think removing the vaccine mandate would then expose our vulnerable patients, those who are elderly, those who have already got autoimmune deficiencies, to these new strains of COVID. So personally, and on behalf of the Labour Party, I think I'm correct in saying that I don't think there is any plan to lift the vaccine mandate on health workers, simply because that would lead to endangering the public health of our patients who are in a vulnerable position when they're in hospital. Thank you.
Are you sure you still got enough button cards here, Rudi?
We have it, yes, we have a button card for Rudi.
Yeah, it's a very simple answer. We will remove this crazy mandate immediately.
Okay, next up, Kevin.
Number 5, please.
We have question U, uniform. Rest homes are losing registered nurses to Te Whatu Ora as they are unable to pay the pay packages. Do you think that pay packages for registered nurses should be equitable across all sectors of healthcare?
The simple answer to that is yes, absolutely. Look, healthcare people that are in frontline there are essential for our health system to operate properly, and we have to pay them accordingly. They're frontline staff. If we don't, they're going to find overseas countries are better off than little old New Zealand, and we don't want that. We want them to be retained here, and so they need to have even par payments for their wages. That's for certain. Across all sectors, absolutely all sectors. It's terrible that we're in a situation that our hospitals are so short of staff, and it's touching on the previous question about the mandates. New Zealand First is going to eliminate those mandates. We're going to obliterate them. And for anybody that has been put out of work, especially in the health system, we're going to compensate them. That's what our policy is.
Okay, next up, Susan. What's your next box number?
12.
We have question Z for Zulu. Does your party believe that there should be a policy on the location of alternative energy sources such as solar farms near urban areas?
The ACT Party believes that our energy needs to be really thought through, and we need long-term planning as opposed to the kind of reactive things that have been going on in the lolly scramble that is their election. We've heard a lot about being green. It's interesting, my husband works at Genesis Energy, and this government has burned more of the cheapest, dirtiest Indonesian coal than any other government in the history of all time. So, do we need to do something about solar, more green energy? Absolutely we do. And we need to make it evidence-based. No more reactive jobs for boys. We need to do a thorough job researching the options, using the latest technology and getting the best answers. Because as I said, looking after the environment is one of the principles that the ACT Party.
Oh, we have a button.
Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin.
Energy. New Zealand First is going to set up a Ministry of Energy. You know why? It's so important that we have another plan in place. It's all very well that we're on solar, hydro. We need to have a Ministry of Energy that is going to delve into our energy consumption. Imagine that, okay, there's going to be a supposed war with China, Ukraine, Russia, all coming down to the South Pacific region. Now that conjures up something that is very, very important. We've got rid of Marsden Point. We're not sustainable now. And so you imagine if there was a major problem within our blue waters, shall we say, in the South Pacific region. What are we going to be reliant on? We only need an earthquake to get rid of a hydro dam. Everybody's going on about climate change. What if there's no wind? What are we going to do for our energy? We're so reliant on power. That's why, as I said, New Zealand First is going to set up a Ministry of Energy to delve in and to review all these things. It is so crucial and important. Otherwise, our country, we've got probably about 2 or 3 months supply of petrol. What are we going to do? So you've got to start thinking in the future. Technology is coming around and there are more things improved all the time. Ministry of Energy.
Just want to also point out there is a Minister for Energy and Resources, and the current portfolios that they're in charge of is New Zealand Electricity Authority and the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Authority, and the current minister is Megan Woods. Just so put that out there that we might be there, it just might be shuffling the deck chairs. Alex, your box number.
I would like number 25.
We have question T. Would your party advocate for introducing a sugar drinks tax to help combat obesity, dental decay, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and other chronic medical conditions?
Yeah, the short answer is yes. So it's the policy of the Opportunities Party, who you should obviously vote for. We want to tax junk food, including sugar, and subsidise healthy food. It's important to note we don't want to subsidise healthy food by taking the GST off fresh fruit and vegetables, because that administratively costs the government more than the revenue that it would raise, and the supermarkets are going to pocket the difference anyway, so it's all a bit pointless. Instead, what we would like to do, we'd like to improve the 5-star rating system that's currently used on food. We'd like to improve that, apply that to all foods, and reap the reward from that. What you essentially see overseas when you do that is you either see people consuming less sugar, i.e. making better health choices for themselves, or you actually see manufacturers reducing the sugar content of their food to avoid being slapped with that sugar tax. And so either way, from both the market side and the individual behavior and incentive side, you have better health outcomes, but you still give people the choice. If I still want to buy my Mars bar, I can, because I just really love Mars bars. Vote for the Opportunities Party.
Okay, thank you, candidates, for answering those questions. We're going to take a break now, and we'll see you back in 10 minutes' time for hard-hitting questions.
Can I just ask very quickly, did
before
all
you
the
disappear.
button cards get used? Oh, you didn't use all of them. Thank you. First card.
I think they do. Okay. Okay, and welcome back to It's in the Ballot. Now let's kick off for hard-hitting questions. Okay, so for those who are wondering what's with hard-hitting questions are the questions that we ask all candidates on what the pursuits are. You cannot use your button cards, you cannot use your refer cards, because everyone's answering it. So let's kick off for hard-hitting question number 1. And the hard-hitting question was, what is the most pressing issue in the Hamilton West electorate? And I'll just wait for it to give me a new order to give out for the candidates. Let's kick off with Kevin. What is the most pressing issue in the Hamilton West electorate?
I feel that the most important pressing issue is the closure of the supermarket in the Norton area. That there should never, ever have happened. It's created a bit of a furor here in the Hamilton West electorate, because people within that vicinity, and it's quite a big area there around the north where we used to go there to the mall, Countdown. They now have to go to Dinsdale. And some of the vulnerable people that's within the electorate, well, they find that very, very difficult. And plus, it's going to create congestion in that Dinsdale area. So that there, in my view, is the most pressing issue in the Hamilton West electorate. The closing of that supermarket. And hopefully there's going to be some supermarket that's going to come back in there to enable the people in the area to have another supermarket. Thank you.
Fingers crossed that hopefully the opposition sits there and considers it as a prime location. Next up, Tama.
Kia ora. The most hard-hitting issue for this electorate is the economy. The absolute economic failure caused by a bloated government, what I describe as maximum kāwanatanga, the overburdened regulation that weighs down on people, and the cost of living crisis that has been caused by the government's policies and the way it conducts economic failure. Right now, the Labor government, Labor-led government, spends more than $1 billion extra every week than the John Key Bill English government. Yet all the outcomes and the most important things, crime, law and order, education, health and housing, have all gone backwards. What we observe is that we have to get hold of the economy and fix it, and with that, restore law and order and get health and education services back on track.
Okay, next up, Myra.
The most important issue in my electorate of Hamilton West is housing. And this government has built 13,000 state houses across the country, which is more than any government since the 1950s. And if National had been building state houses at the rate we are building them, then there would not be a housing crisis and there would not be people in emergency motels today. So the emergency motel system started under National, and we continued it because it's better than having people in cars. We inherited a housing problem, which we are solving by building our way out of it. I made an official information request of coming order, and I found that under the 6 years of the Labor government, we have built 766 houses across Hamilton, whereas under 9 years of National, they only managed to build 448. So we have been building state houses at 2.5 times the rate of National in Hamilton West, and we are solving our electorate's most pressing issues. Kia ora.
Okay, next up, Susan.
This is, I agree with my colleagues here about the supermarket, and I've had calls from people who can't go to that supermarket, then were robbed when they had deliveries made to their houses. But the two issues, and there are two issues in Hamilton that I hear continually about. One is the cost of living. And there's so many things that this government that have put prices up that it didn't need to do. So, for example, stopping the interest deductibility on rentals, and which immediately put up people's rents, $130 to $180 a week. Ridiculous, really bad timing. If we look at what eggs were one of the last proteins that people actually afford to buy, and they've just gone up 68%. Why? Because the government just had to change to free-range eggs right now. Now, any look at the economy would have told you this wasn't really smart, but now we've got people who are struggling, I think, to get good nutrition. The other factor that I hear about every day is crime. Everybody in this area is a victim of crime. And I look across the road at 4 businesses that have all shut up and gone because of ram raids. So crime is affecting everyone, but especially the poor.
Okay, Rudi.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue we have really is the crime. I think the ram raids are disappointing. It's indicative of the youth that has lost their moral compass. It's indicative of what goes on in their households and why they do it. I know somebody who has questioned some of these youngsters as young as 10 years old. Why do you do it? And the answer was for the rush. It's not to get, the money or anything. It's the rush. Why? Because they don't have proper parental care. And I think that's a massive problem in terms of where we are. I went to a store that was ram raided, and I get there and they're all behind barbed wire. And the husband's not there, and the lady is tending, and she's got a little baby in her arms. And I think, listen, guys, it's disgusting to think that our nation has come to this point.
And I think the banning of importation of automatic vehicles may go a long way to help that issue, considering from what I've heard from various different police officers, the cars that always tend to be in use tend to be predominantly known to only have automatic-only models. Which, and I myself does have a millennial anti-theft mechanism in my car known as a clutch. Okay, And was it up last, Alex, on behalf of Naomi?
All right, so bear with me again. I am channeling my inner Naomi. It's a wonderful process. So the most pressing issue that Naomi highlights for the Hamilton West electorate, it is twofold. It's the cost of living, which is largely driven by the cost of housing, rents and mortgages. You've got people going to university, you've got young families who are trying to buy their first home, and you've got people who are more established in life who are wondering, how are my kids, how are my grandkids ever going to be able to buy a house where they grew up? So we've got to address that. The Opportunities Party has many policies around the cost of housing, too many for me to go into today, but a couple of the big ticket items, or the main one is the land value tax, so you can go and look that one up later, I'm sure you will. The other shout out here is that Naomi's PhD was actually about community, concepts of home and belongingness and how we create that sense. I think that's something that's been missing in our communities for a long time, is an actual sense of community. We feel very isolated. You don't know your neighbours like you used to. You can't turf your kids out to the cul-de-sac and they'll turn up 6 or 7 hours late for dinner anymore. That's not the world we live in, and that's a shame. That's a massive issue for Hamilton West.
Thank you, candidates. Okay, let's go on to hard-hitting question number 2. Central government increasingly communicates with citizens via emails and text messages. Therefore, non-computer literate visit libraries for assistance. Changes to central government practices and legislation impacts local communities which councils are expected to deliver without funding. Do you believe that central government should form partnerships with councils to deliver central government services? If so, how should this partnership be funded? And let's kick off with Alex on behalf of Naomi.
Thank you. So the Opportunity Party's got good policy in this area. One of our key values is around decentralisation. We believe that the best people to make decisions about the communities are the people who are closest to those communities. With that in mind, the first key policy that the Opportunities Party has in this area is returning GST on all new development to local councils to empower them to spend on infrastructure that meets the community's needs. That's infrastructure above ground and below ground. It's not just water pipes, it's not just power, it's libraries, it's swimming pools, it's parks and recreation, all of the things that community needs to thrive. Secondly, the Opportunities Party wants to empower communities to meet their needs by putting funding where it's needed rather than where bureaucracy feels that it should go. And additionally, this is a place where we as politicians can innovate. We can create new mechanisms to consult communities on big decisions, things like citizen assemblies, things like more detailed petitions and increasing community outreach. We want decisions to be made by communities for communities rather than by central government.
Okay, next up, Susan.
It's absolutely critical that people, whether they're at national government or local government, learn one very, very important lesson, and that is you need to stay within your budget. If you talk to pensioners within Hamilton West about what the rate rises are doing to them or to local businesses, you'll see that this constant over expenditure is not acceptable. I noticed last week that Hamilton City Council was running a fundraising thrifty shop. Now, where I live in central Hamilton, there are at least 8 charities who make their living out of such shops and such second-hand sales. Now, they're actually competing with the Hamilton City Council. Our council needs to get back into focusing on what matters. We're building a new theatre for $100 million. We could have actually fixed the one we've got for $25 million, which, let's face it, this city put money into. So there is incredible waste that has to stop. Absolutely, there should be cooperation between central government and local government, but people need to work within their means. We can't keep doing this.
Next up, Evan.
There's one thing that I have to agree there with my colleague here, Sue. Look, we cannot keep on spending money. We just can't. I don't know what is so difficult that somebody can't comprehend that if you spend money all the time, you've got to have money coming in. And that's the difficulty. All very well, even politicians, even some of the Labour Party, they are just throwing lollies out left, right and centre. I cannot understand that. We're such a small country. We don't have the for all these promises that are coming out just prior to this election. I cannot believe it. It's just left, right, and centre. All these promises. They're not going to do it. It's impossible the way they're throwing this money around. Local councils, another thing. All these decisions are being made by people that are in charge. Politicians, councillors are making decisions on behalf of us. And I'm damn certain I don't want my money spent the way it's being used. We've got to have an economy that's bringing money in. Then we can resolve these things that everybody is concerned about. We just cannot keep on wasting money.
Okay, next up, Rudi.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because at the end of the day, when I read the question, I thought to myself, well, it's great, but there's a mismatch that goes on in terms of central government and local government. They don't seem to understand that the two should be dovetailing and complement each other. Because the moment central government gets involved with anything at local government level, they want to overshadow it. They want to run it. They want to control it. They want to tell that local council what to do, when to do it, and why to do it. That's not the way that you have a partnership. And I'm all keen for partnerships. And when I read the question, I thought, yeah, should it be funded? Yeah, oh, man. And I agree with you, Kevin. We run out of money before we run out of ideas. So let's just stop this. Let's be frugal, and let's get on with running the country in an effective and a dynamic way.
Okay, last, Tama.
One of the big challenges that we have in our communities is understanding the roles of central government and local government and others in our community. And right now we have a central government, like the factory in the Lorax, that is bigger and bigger, and sometime it's going to run out of resources and just fall to bits. Very wasteful spending on a whole bunch of things that don't really matter. Imagine if you spent all the money that has been spent so far on the Auckland Light Rail boondoggle and put that into fixing the wastewater down at Parnell. We might not have that 13-metre sinkhole right now. So, pardon? So what we say is that government should be limited. We believe in localism, but local councils also have to be responsible. We have announced some projects where we will partner with Hamilton City Council, such as the Southern Links project linking Kahiki Drive with Tamahere. Those are the types of projects we can go in together and fund. There are some projects like the Cambridge to Piare 4-laning we will fund in full. But what is a failure, what is an absolute recipe for failure is thinking that you can do everything for everybody using someone else's money. That is Santa Claus type philosophy, and that's what this current government believes in.
Thank you for that. Okay, now let's get to my favourite part of the show. If elected, what will be your first members' bill that you're putting in the biscuit tin?
Oh, hello.
Oh, have we? Oh, I'm guilty for that. Sorry, I'm guilty. I'm guilty for that.
So
Go ahead. Yeah,
do I get like a bonus time as a consolation?
Oh.
Worth a try. Central government needs to partner with local government because local government can't do it alone. I have a recent example. On the 21st of September, local government minister Kieran McAnulty announced that the government is investing $2.5 million to fund and replace and upgrade a stop bank to protect the Waipawa drinking water treatment plant. This will protect the drinking water for around 3,200 people. And Kieran McAnulty said this is a great example of central and local government working together. The Labour government believes in the need to reform how central government works. I would direct any voter who's interested in local government to have a look at the Future of Local Government report. There are lots of great recommendations in there. And a lot of those changes, if they are implemented, will strengthen the partnership between local and central government. This government has already partnered with the Hamilton City Council on a range of issues. I've visited some of them, including Zeal in Ward Street, where central government has given funding so that local government entities can support the local community, have youth initiatives and so forth. Central government is also thinking that we need to have a new funding model, and that at least $1 billion needs to go back from central government to local government. Thank you.
And, and apologies on that one. I realised I hit refresh on the page before I've actually got to the bottom of the list. That's how that mistake occurred. Okay, back to the fun part of what I was mentioning before, my favourite section of the show, where if elected, what would be the first members' bill that you'll put into the biscuit tin? So any member of parliament who isn't a minister can put in a member's bill, and it goes into it, and numbers get drawn out every time they start a member sitting. And if a member's bill gets picked up, that gets added to the order paper, and they participate on Members' Day, which is every second Wednesday on a sitting fortnight. It's a very weird, convoluted way. Look at the parliamentary website; it's the easiest way to sit there and find out. And as long as the House don't get an urgency, Members' Days goes ahead. First up, Tama, you have 2 minutes on what would be your first member's bill that you would put into the biscuit tin.
It's absolutely important for us to have resource management legislation that both enables development and the creation of multiple infrastructure touch points, as well as housing, as well as protecting the environment. More recently, we've had a trilogy of absolutely unreasonable new resource management legislation acts put into place, like the Natural Built Environment Act. This legislation absolutely moves the dial all towards some Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse creation of ideas and ideologies to drive resource management decision making. For example, the key principle of the Natural Built Environment Act is te oranga o te taiao, and I've described it in Parliament as akin to putting a pounamu mato on a white horse. What does that mean? Te oranga o te taiao is a new concept in Māori communities, so how it is actually interpreted by most people in councils and throughout New Zealand would be absolutely astonishing. It talks about things like mana and kawa and tikanga, and on asking the minister who fronted and sponsored this piece of legislation, Minister David Parker, he was absolutely at odds end to describe and define what those terms mean. The resource management legislation enables councils and others to move things like housing forward, move things like roading forward, move things like building key infrastructure like schools and other things forward. Instead, we've got a mishmash of maze-like pieces of provisions in this legislation that will actually take things backwards. What we are saying, and what I'm saying, is if I had the chance to put a bill into the biscuit tin and that bill would be drawn, it would be a bill to repeal all the resource management legislation that has been passed under urgency without relevant analysis by the people of New Zealand. Kia ora.
Okay, next up, Susan. What would be your first member's bill you'd put in the biscuit tin?
The first member's bill that I would put in the biscuit tin would be the student education account. As someone moves through their life, the New Zealand government spends about $250,000 on that person's education, from early childhood to the end of tertiary or higher education. At the moment, where that money goes, what schools or centres they can attend, is controlled by government. We believe that people and children are different and that they should have the right to choose where they go for their education and choose and spend that money as they wish. It could be held in an entity of public trust and then used as the people thought through their lifetime. We believe one of the amazing things about this, not only does it give people choice, but it would also remove the crippling levels of debt that people in our tertiary and higher education systems now owe to government, which delay them getting homes, delay them starting families, and so many other things. It would allow us to pursue international opportunities, develop talents, and truly provide education that meets the needs of those people on an individual basis. There's one other bill that I would put my heart and soul behind, and that is a bill that's being drawn up by Karen Chua. Karen Chua is one of our MPs who spent much of her life going through foster homes, and she has produced a bill that will ensure independent oversight of the activities of Oranga Tamariki. The way children are treated in this country under OT is something we should all be deeply ashamed of. 70% of those children end up in prisons, and currently this government is fighting those seeking compensation for all of the things that they have suffered. I believe not only do we need this oversight, but we also need Karen's proposal to set a social worker beside each one of those children who looks after and ensures they get care and protection and not moved from person to person so that what's happening is just hidden.
Okay, now we're going to try to play a video for Naomi's first members bill. Stacey, fire it away.
The policy that I would implement if I were elected to Parliament is the universal basic income. It's a policy that is forward-thinking and intergenerational. It's supported equally by left and right-wing thinkers, but for very different reasons. It lifts the burden of minimum wages off businesses, and it eradicates poverty and the welfare trap. It incentivises work because you don't lose your money when you go to work. It also significantly reduces bureaucracy and frees up social workers to actually do their job of supporting our most vulnerable citizens, rather than administering their job of figuring out all the multiple benefit types. It gives freedom and choice to people, and it works. There have been multiple trials all around the world, and there is plenty of evidence of the benefits of a universal basic income. The longest trial has been in Alaska since the 1970s. And so the Opportunities Party believe that a universal basic income is inevitable. It's just a matter of time. We are proposing $1,375 per month per adult aged 18 to 65, no questions asked, forever. It's like superannuation for everyone. And we have shown both how we will implement it and how we'll pay for it. The Opportunities Party is a party that is socially and environmentally responsible, but also fiscally sound. Every policy we put out, we show how we'll pay for it. We're also showing how we'll implement it, and so we're starting with a tax-free threshold of $1,500. So that means your first $1,500 earned for everyone is tax-free. That benefits everyone, but particularly those at the lower end of the earnings scale. So we're asking for you to party vote top, to bring a fresh voice and fresh ideas into Parliament. I'm Naomi Pocock, and I'm standing in the Hamilton West Electorate, and we're asking for your party vote in 2023. Kia ora.
Okay, and I'm hoping we're getting back. Yeah, we're back. Okay, we're back. We're getting back there. Okay, Kevin, what's your first members bill?
I think the first one that I would consider putting is concerning immigration. Everybody's concerns that are here in this room and around New Zealand all come back to the immigration policy that we've had. Open door policy, health, housing, roading, all the other things, even crime. It all comes back, if you analyse it, it all comes back to immigration. We cannot have this immigration policy that is just open door, 50 to 70,000 a year coming in, and this year it's been reported 96,000. We can't even look after our own people now. That's the reason why we've got house prices, all the immigrants that are coming in, all of a sudden, and it's been building up over a number of years. In 1993, Winston Peters was called a racist for having an immigration policy that was going to be more sustainable to New Zealand. He wanted 10 to 15,000 per year coming into the country, and we would pick the cream of the crop to enable our economy to be real strong. We haven't done that. 50 to 70,000 every year, duplicated over the years, and now we've got 100,000 coming in. That's crazy. We have to have an inquiry into this immigration. so that we can have it more sustainable. As I'm saying, all the things that every one of us have got concerns about comes back to immigration. And until we do something that's going to resolve so many people coming in, right, that this country is going to keep on going down. Immigration is great, but let's choose the people that want to come here, not the ones that we necessarily require.
Okay, Myra.
If you're still tuning in, congratulations, it's been a super long session. If I become an MP, the very first bill that I'll put in the biscuit tin will be the Regulation of Property Management Bill. We need a law to regulate property managers. About 1 in 4 households in New Zealand rent. We have around about 1.4 million renters in New Zealand. But property managers are out there conducting their business with zero regulation. And I would like to change that. As a person who has rented most of my life, I am personally affected by poor property management practices, and I have a lot of horror stories to tell you. If I had more than 2 minutes, I would share deeply. But we know that lots of professions, lawyers, builders, accountants, architects are all regulated, and property managers are not. What we need is a bill to regulate their conduct, to stop them from conducting 3 monthly inspections of perfectly well kept properties. Property inspections are invasive and time consuming. My most recent property inspection, the property manager took 104 photos and then complained that she had not had enough time to do a thorough search of my property. And I kid you not, I have that in writing. I have so many issues with property managers, and they have so much power over renters' lives, and they just need regulation. They need a code of practice. They need training. There need to be rules and regulations around the kind of knowledge that property managers should be able to demonstrate before they are let loose on renters. They have the power of somebody's house in their hands. They can recommend to an owner that somebody be evicted or not. With all of that power in someone's hands, they need regulation. At the very least, they need a minimum qualification to be able to take up the role of a property manager. We should have a qualification, a professional body, a code of ethics, and that will lead to a better situation for both renters and for the property owners. And I'm going to stop because my time's up. So thank you very much.
It sounds like your property manager doesn't treat you as a customer, which I have noticed there a lot depending on the property management firms you deal with. Some treat their tenants like customers, other than treat them like gum on their shoes, and they need to sit there and try and teach them a lesson. Okay, Rudi, your first member's bill.
Right. It's important to start off with why I am with Freedoms New Zealand. When we had the pandemic, I realized that we have a nation and we have a people that were groaning under the fact that their freedoms were eroded. We had people lose their jobs who were good workers, but just because they didn't want to conform, were taken out of the job. And I realized that the main thing that we had lost as Kiwis was our freedoms. You know, this is the sort of stuff that we have great Kiwis like Edmund Hillary that stood out. And here we have, as a Kiwi nation, have our freedoms taken away from us. The Bill of Rights suddenly wasn't important anymore. We had to actually take government to court to query, and the Bill of Rights should now be enshrined. So one of the first things that I'd like to do is stop the interference from external forces that tries to make us do what the world wants us to do. We're putting the world on notice. No, we're Kiwis. We will do what we want to do and what we feel is essential, and that's what we're going to do. So my first member's bill is going to limit the effect of the World Health Organization on our nation, the World Economic Forum on our nation, and under every black rock, you're going to find a politician, and we're going to stop that. and we're going to relinquish and certainly put into place the start of withdrawing from United Nations. We can save a lot of money that way as well. I'm glad I see frowns, high, whatever, but we'll go with high fives. Vote, party vote, Freedom's New Zealand.
Okay, that's a very interesting one on the card. So now let's get over to closing statements, and we'll get Naomi's closing statement on there. For her opening statement, we're going to post it on Facebook due to the fact that it did not play properly earlier. So let's kick off Naomi's video closing statement.
Sorry I couldn't be here today. I really would have liked to come along and connect with you all. In closing, the Opportunities Party believes that it's time for democracy to work how it should be, like it does in many European countries, with two parties around 30% of the vote and a strong centrist party showing the way forward with evidence-based policy, looking to future generations, bringing the environment to the centre and creating a fairer society for everyone. So in 2023, we're asking you to party vote top and bring that fresh voice into Parliament. Kia ora.
Okay, we're back. Okay, next up, Tama, your closing statement.
Is it a minute?
Yes, 1 minute.
Kia ora tātou. I'm in Parliament to be part of a team to make a difference for the lives of all Kiwis, including those in Hamilton West and the various Māori communities that I'm a part of. When I talk with the people of Hamilton West, I'm confronted with the cold, hard reality of the cost of living crisis and economic failure that a bloated, over-regulated government has created for many communities. On the other side, I see significant waste. I see the commitment of hundreds of millions and nearly billions of dollars to projects that are absolute boondoggles, like Lake Onslow, like the Auckland Light Rail, like many others which have been proposed. We need to stop the rampant crime. We need to absolutely focus on those drivers of inequality, like education, like health, like housing. We can only do that by starting to get our economy back on track. That's why I'm asking for your support. Party Vote National, Potaka for Hamilton West. Kia ora tātou.
Okay, next up, Rudi, your closing statements.
Our closing statement is as follows. It is important for us to this time around use the tools of MMP. Gone are the days of the flip-flop between blue and red, and that is your only option. And it's clear to see that people are now exercising their other options. And that's one of the reasons why National is not screeching ahead in the polls, because people realize that they're very similar to Labour, and Labour is very similar to National. So we're offering people the opportunity to vote for people that will come from outside of the current flow of political parties. So that is the reason I'm standing for Vision, and that's the candidate vote. And Freedom's New Zealand is where my party vote goes, because we are 3 component parties that make up the umbrella party of the Freedom's New Zealand. Thank you so much for attending, and thank you so much for listening to us.
Okay, next up, Myra.
I would like Labour to win this election so that New Zealand can keep moving forward. We have been through some tough times, and this government has protected people and protected businesses through COVID, and you can trust this government to keep New Zealand moving forward. All the indicators are moving in the right direction. Inflation is going to be down between 1% and 3% by the end of next year. We have record low unemployment, 8 quarters under 4%. We are going to be back in surplus in 2027. More than anything else, we have a fully costed, transparent fiscal policy. National will not show you the numbers of how they are going to pay for their tax cuts. They've been asked time and time again, and they will not show you the numbers Are you really willing to vote for somebody who tells you, I'm confident, I'm very confident, I'm rock solid, but he won't show you the numbers. He won't show you how he's going to pay for his tax cuts because he doesn't think you need to see the numbers. Kia ora.
Okay, next up, Kevin, your closing statement.
Closing statement for New Zealand First. This election is the most crucial election New Zealand's ever faced. It is absolutely crucial to sort these things out. Democracy is being threatened. Democracy is being threatened. I keep on saying that because it is. It's under threat, people. And if you don't see what's happening within the government and within New Zealand, this is going to be a country that's going to be way down the bottom of the CDs. It's fact, it's just about right down there now. You know, democracy is so important to this country. We've got to resolve all these problems. It's simple as that. And unless we build our economy up, all the promises that are being made by political parties are not going to be able to be achieved. Not at all. So I'm suggesting you to vote, hardy vote New Zealand First to bring our country back. That's as simple as that. And unless we do that, we're going to have left and right. New Zealand First is right for coming up the middle and to keep both governments, whoever it's going to be, in check. Thank you.
Okay, and Susan, your closing statement.
Leadership is about action. The ACT Party was the first party to actually formulate a fully costed budget. It's been available for ages. We were also the first party to actually update it when the appalling books were revealed recently. So you can go on and see what we are going to do. And you can know we're actually going to act and do it because we have costed it. This cost of living crisis has been largely caused by government policies and incredible overspending. Debt's gone from $6 billion to over $100 billion. We each owe $151,000 each. We are paying $10 billion in interest a year. If this was a credit card, we've smashed it. We will also address crime and make sure there are consequences, and we will unite people by having the conversation about a constitution that everybody's got a right to. We are not children. We are adults, and we have the right to choose our future. Party vote, act, and get your freedoms back, and let's progress, not just to where we were, let's move forward. Let's be innovative again.
Thank you. And thank you for all the candidates who are coming tonight and coming all the way out here. And thank you for making us very welcome again in the Hamilton community. And we also like to thank All Saints Community Church who has let us use the same venue again to do the Ballot show. We appreciate with all past relationships to keep them going. And this is another one we're very happy with. Okay, tomorrow we'll be heading down the road to Cambridge for the Taupo Electorate show, which is at 4 p.m, and followed by the Waikato Electorate show, which is outside the electorate but in boundaries of Cambridge, at 7 p.m. at the Cambridge Town Hall. If you'd like to fill up the room, apparently we've got a very good seating capacity over there. I can also thank Jill for stepping in for the questions again today. Tomorrow, she does have a very good friend who may be stepping in, but we'll leave that for a bit of a surprise in case fingers crossed it all happens. Thanks, Stacey, for doing the remote editing all the way from Wellington, and thank you to Nick and Alex in studio for doing both cameras and editing. So we'll see everyone here, everyone back tomorrow at 4 p.m. for the Taupo Electorate, and see you then. Have a good night.